Firstly, just to welcome Ms. Leach and Mr. Taff, and for the President for your opening statement. Obviously, delivery is key, and there's some questions I have around this. And you set out that we need a 50% increase in annual output, and that's just to meet the government targets. Some of us would argue that the government targets even need to go further, but we're not going to dwell on that for now. And speeding up delivery is what I want to talk to you about. One of the issues that I've raised consistently with the department and with the Secretary General is Graham Dial and some of the officials is the reuse of the same plans. Now, I'm not arguing that we go back to 1930 style housing or 1950 style housing, right? But if you look at, if you want anybody to ever produce anything, whether it's a carpenter or whether it's a welder or whoever it is, anybody who ever produced anything, if you want to produce a lot of something, they want to produce it most efficiently at the cheapest price and get the best quality, right? And do it in an efficient, swift manner is mass production, right? I haven't met anybody who wants an affordable or social house or a cost rental who would object to living in the same house in Wexford as the people in Donegal or County Laois where I live, right? So now the department, they give a bit of a spoof on this, I believe, that when they're questioned about this, and they have been questioned about here, as Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, I and others questioned them about it, that that they have standards. But standards, what I'm talking about is the same plan. There's brilliant examples. I'm sure every TD here can show examples of good housing. So you need 1, 2 and 3 bedroom houses. In some areas, you're correct, you need different type housing. You need high density, low density, depending on whether it's out in Blackwater or whether it's in Wexford town or whether it's in Dublin. I was actually in Wexford in Blackwater on Sunday, by the way. It's a bit windy, but it's nice. But and you need houses for disabled people and you need houses for the elderly. But there's reckon there's between 8 and 10 designs needed. Don't go at the apartments to take care of themselves for now, but houses, right? And, is it the case that you're being allowed? That's the first question I have. Is it the case that they're handing you plans? Because other county managers have told me that the cost of architectural designs is running up to 15%, which is lunacy, right? Along with slowing things down and shuffling pieces of paper between yourselves and the customs house, which is more lunacy, right? You should have a standardised design, build them. And even with the affordables, you can always change what the porch looks like. You can put a different facade on one of them. One of them can be plaster finish, one can have more brick or whatever. You can tweak them around to make them look different. Karen's Homes and all them are doing it. They're doing it, right? So look, the authority should be able to do it. And just architects' costs, if you maybe say a few words on that. The procurement you're using, and I welcome that increase you're using design and build, so the local authorities design and build procurement process is being used. And just in terms of the cost rentals, right, there's a huge gap out there, and your housing officials will tell you this. There's a whole range of people coming in who are going to be very, very elderly, living in very, very expensive private rented accommodation, up to, I think it's 2,700 or 800 in South Dublin at the moment. Average rents. The rents are skyrocketing, rent pressure zones are not working. So we need cost rentals for those people. Homes that are built not for profit, but where the finances can happen over a period of 35 or so years to cover the cost of construction and maintenance, which is a model that some of us championed here back 10 years ago when nobody wanted to hear about it. That's just if you give a view on that. The other one I wanted to ask you about, watching the time, the other one I want to ask you about is over the shop ones, right? Been a lot of talk about this, right? And I want to say something, it could be a bit controversial to yourself, Miss Leach, that a lot of those streetscapes, and you can think of towns around the country, right? You drive through them, if you went about modernising some of them, they'd fall down in a pile of dust, right? They're costly to do, right? Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult to get fire certs, and to reach fire standards, because a lot of them are 3-storey buildings. And the other thing is you wind up with apartments in it separated by timber floors, right? And huge maintenance costs. And what I'm suggesting is, which has been done in some areas, in some cases will it not make more sense to hit them with the the back bucket of a JCB and load them into a skip, right? And put little streets, because a lot of them have long gardens. A lot of them had an acre plus gardens running down to a wall garden at the back. And in some cases, there's some good examples where that has been put in, not to gouge holes in the streetscape, right? But, you know, we need to stop worrying maybe a bit too much about cosmetics too, right? And actually put in small streets of houses where you get in maybe 6 or 8 or 10, and you actually get people living not half a mile out the road, but in the centre of the village, and town, which is what we're supposed to be doing, right? Just what's your view on that? And the last question I have is about staffing in local authorities. I was a member of a local authority for a number of years, and one of the big changes that I noticed is local authorities have gone away from core functions, right? We can rattle them all off: water, taxis, you know, etc., etc., etc. And they're being diverted into arts and community. And the department, what I'm being told is, they will approve and have approved legions of people in local authorities in those departments and those sections, right? But try and get somebody approved for housing staff, it's more difficult. What's the situation with that, and what's your view on it? You know, do you feel that local authorities need to get back to core functions, back to basics, right? Water, sewerage, housing, public lights, footpaths, roads, libraries, fire services, the things that matter to people, right? And that's not against arts, by the way. I'm just saying that, you know, and community, you know, it's nice, but, you know, it's just one of those things, like, it's a bit like going out on a Saturday night. If you can, you know, you don't necessarily have to. It's nice to go in that time. Arts, it's the same, you know. What's your view on that?
Just before you start, Mr. Taft, just to be conscious that the 7 minutes is up, but I'm going to give you time just to answer it, but just...
if you give me 3 quarters to what Fianna Fáil give, God, I'd be happy.
No, I've been fair. I mean, very fair.
I know.
So, the 7 minutes up. So, yeah, thanks, Mr. Taft.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach, and Deputy Stanley. You're always welcome in Wexford. On the reuse of the same plans, yes, the standard plans are now in place from the department for all the housing typologies. So they've been published, they're available, and local authorities are starting to use them. I suppose where the issue comes about is you have to sometimes tailor those layouts to the particular site. And that does take a bit of time, but it's not about redoing them, it's about tailoring them. So that has and is working and has speeded things up.
The house plan is exactly the same?
Yeah.
Outside and inside?
Yeah,
right,
same layout. So that's done, it's in place, but you still have to tailor them to meet it. On architects' costs, yes, costs have gone up on everything. Consultants' costs have gone up. In fact, in some cases, we're lucky to get architectural firms or engineering firms to even tender for the work, let alone come in at a reasonable cost. That's how tight things are at the moment. We have gone out for tenders, for example, for some projects, and we've got no tenders back for design teams.
What percentage of the overall cost of it?
Oh, it wouldn't be 15%. For example, what we do in Wexford is we design the architectural element of it in-house, and then we might go out for later phases of it. So we don't outsource it all. We do some of it in-house with our own teams. But you could be talking, if you outsourced everything for engineers, quantity surveyors, all that, tender documents, you could be talking 12 to 15% depending on the project. On cost rentals for older people, this morning myself and Elaine were sitting on a group looking at housing policy for older people, which will form part of the new plan, and the policy around cost rental for older people as they retire and as their income takes a significant reduction. That has been looked at in that plan as to how that's going to be dealt with. So I don't know what policy will be in on that, but I know it's certainly going to be part of that. On over the shop, I think absolutely correct. Some of these properties are realistically just not fit for refurbishment, and in some cases should be demolished and should be converted, maybe amalgamated and put into what we call an infill development or a backyard development, where we allow more new houses to be built on that spot. And that is happening. We probably need to do more of it. But the issue is, for us, is that if you were to do, say, social housing in that, by the time you bought the site, demolished the houses and built the 4 houses, you have a very expensive scheme. But that's not to say it's not the right thing to do, because we have to repopulate our town centres, and it's about doing a mix of that as well as the greenfield development, and local authorities are starting to do that. But again, it comes back to the issue, we need more staff to do that, because that takes more staff input to do schemes like that, but it is the right thing to do, and that will be factored into our request for new staff. On the staffing in general in local authorities, yes, we do need more, and I agree completely about core functions. We see in the CCMA that the delivery of social housing and affordable housing is our core function, and we want to do that. We have been doing it at scale up to now. We need to ramp up and do more of that. And it's about getting the resources in to do that. So what we do is we have a mixture of architects, engineers and quantity surveyors in our housing team. Most local authorities do, so we've all the skill sets in-house. We do all our design work in-house, and then we use design and build or development under license to do that. So what we're really good at is designing houses. We design houses, our architects know the locals in the area, they know the councillors in the area, they know what to look out for when they're designing things and what will get through the Part 8 process and the public consultation process. So we absolutely want to be resourced to do that and to do more of it, and to do more of, like the schemes you've said about, you know, infill development, smaller infill developments that take more resources. We want to do more than that, but we need the resources to do it, and we'll factor that into the work we're doing with the department on our ask for more resources and for more staff, and for getting the architects, the engineers, the quantity surveyors to do that.